Hello, Ruth here from Beltane Gifts. Welcome to the Crafting Shares. Today we are going to be making one of these, which is a needle felted cat. Now mine does look a little bit mutated. Hopefully yours will look a lot more realistic. For today's project you're going to need a felting pad. I'm using a cloth bag filled with rice. You'll also need some finger protectors, a felting needle. I'm using a fine generic needle, so that's the shortest one they do. I've also got some scissors, a needle and black cotton, two black 6mm round beads, these ones are plastic, and I'm using carded Corriedale for my fibre. I've got kind of a light grey brown and a dark brown for this project. Before you start, I do recommend getting some reference images to work from. I personally for mine have googled sitting cat, and the images that came up, there's a real selection. You can normally get from different angles as well, which is really handy. I have drawn some just quick rough sketches of a cat from a couple of different angles just for me to work from, and I'm going to keep that to the side just so I know what I'm aiming for. Now with my carded fibre, if I was using roving I would make a ball first and then shape it from there, but because I'm using this carded fibre, what I'm going to do is just go straight for the shape I want. So I'm just going to roll it up, getting it going in different directions, and I just want to make the main body of the cat. So I've just rolled up the fibre there, and the end piece that's sticking out, I'm just going to stab that in, and I'm just doing really little jabs. I'm not going too deep. What I want to do is just attach this end just to the rest of the body. There we go. Once that's done, I'm going to go for any areas just around here and around the base, just where things aren't connecting properly to each other. And I'm just going to stab over them again with just the little jabs close together, just over the surface. We don't want to change the shape or flatten it. We just want to do some little tacks to hold everything in place. And I'm stabbing pretty much at a 90-degree angle. You don't have to worry too much about angles at this point. There we go, we've just attached all those bits in. It's a very rough shape, but it's still very squishy, so there's plenty of room for us to just change this and make it, mould it into what we need. And what I'm going to do is take some more fibre, and because we've got some gaps, big gaps here, I'm just going to wrap a piece over the top and just round the back, pull off the excess. And just as we did before, mind your fingers, I'm going to just tack around the edge there and then just over the top. And this carded fibre is a lot more forgiving than the roving. Because it's quite messy, it's got a little bit more crimp to the fibres to start with. You don't have to worry too much about hiding where you're joining. As you can see here, it's smoothing away quite nicely. And you might also notice I'm not holding on to the end here, I'm leaving it loose, and that's just so that when I stab the fibre can be sucked in rather than being pulled taut and leaving lots of valleys and peaks and things, and it just gets a lot more messy if you hold on to your fibre whilst you're felting it. So I am rotating the bundle as I'm working. This just means that I can keep my felting hand and the felting needle at the same angle and just rotate the work. It just makes it a lot more comfortable and quicker to work with. Now I'm just going over the whole thing still, just making sure everything's nice and firmly attached. Once everything seems to be in place, stop and have a look at what you've got. So I have ended up with a bit of a flat base. This is perfect. I'll be using this as the base for my cat. If you didn't have a flat base once you'd finished yours, what you would need to do is just at a 90-degree angle, so stabbing straight down, just outline the outside edge. So in my case I'm going for a circle, so I'm just stabbing round and round in a circle. And what this will do is start to bring that circle that I'm outlining down so it's lower than the rest base. Once you can see it and it's where you want it, you'll notice that there's fibres here sticking up. So what we're going to do is just lightly, little jabs, not going too deep. I'm just going to go over the whole surface of that. And you'll want to take this quite slowly. If you overdo it, you can end up with a concave base, which we don't want. We want to get it as flat as we can. So just aim for any bits that are sticking up more than any others. There we go. So if you look from the side, that's looking much flatter than it did before. So this means now this is going to be the base of my cat, and this bit going up here is going to be the tummy, which means up here is going to be the neck. Now I want my neck to be a bit narrower, So what I'm going to do is I'm imagining that through the centre of this whole bundle of fibre is a line. In order to keep the rounded shape, my felting needle should always be pointing towards that line. Now if I wanted to just even this out so that I just got a cylinder shape, what I would do is keep my needle at a 90-degree angle to what I want to create, and I would just rotate, keeping the base facing me the whole time. And what this would do is it would even everything out, and I would end up with a nice cylindrical shape. Now because I want to bring the top in, I'm going to continue rotating like I was, keeping the base towards me. But towards this top section here, so the top, I'd say top third, what I'm going to do is have my needle at a 45-degree angle to the top. So my needle's going to stay here. I'm just going to go up and down, keeping this 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to rotate it slowly. Always make sure that your needle's out of the fibre before you start rotating. And I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's starting to come in at an angle. It might take a couple of passes. Just keep going until you're happy. But what we want to create is more of a point towards the top. Okay, so take a moment and have a look from lots of different angles. I've got a much pointier top, which is great, but because I was stabbing towards myself rather than away, what's happened is a lot of the fibre's been brought down here and created a bit of a bulge, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is just keep rotating exactly how I was, but I'm just going to be stabbing just to the above and below and on that ridge, up and down with my needle, and I'm keeping my needle at a 90-degree angle to the ridge itself. So if you see where I'm stabbing here, and because I'm going up and down just over that little bit and I'm only stabbing quite gently, what this should do is just help to smooth out that ridge a little bit. Okay, so that's great, that's just smoothed that out a bit for me. What I'm going to do now is just look at the whole thing and see if there's an area that I like best. I think that will be this area here, which is just a little bit smoother than the rest, a lot less lumpy. So this bit here is going to be the back of my cap, because I'm not going to have to add much to that. And that means opposite at the front here is going to be the front of my cat. So what I'm going to need next is a bit more fibre, because what I want to do with this is to add some legs. So I'm just going to pull off a section and I'm going to split it down the middle. Now because I want my two front legs to be about equal in width, it's easier to actually separate the fibre now, get it about how I want it, and then to add it, rather than to do one at a time and then try and figure out how much fibre I need for the other one. What I'm going to do is start by just attaching one of them about halfway up towards the front. Oh, wrong finger, there we go. Just by stabbing down, little jabs close together. Again, I'm not holding on to the fibre for this, just leaving it loose so that I can get these fluffy ends tucked in and smoothed out. I'm just going over the whole surface now with just little jabs close together, and that's nice and attached now. What I'm going to do then with the other end is just fold my fibre in half, hold it with my thumb. I've got a little bit of overhang here over the base, and again just little jabs close together, going right up to the edge there, and just tucking those little ends in. I'm not putting any sideways pressure on my needle as I stab and tuck up. You don't want to do that just because it can bend or break your needle. And what that's left us with is just this curve here of fibre, and what I'm going to do is just get it where I want it. So I want to create a little paw shape, so I want a little bent section, you can see from this angle, that's going to be my paw. I'm going to hold it here with my finger and just catch these little ends here where it touches the side of the body. I'm going to tuck those in. Once they're held in place, I'm just going to catch the other side bits, and with my needle, if you look from this angle, I am stabbing down 45-degree angle, just catching the fibre here and tucking it into the main body. I'm going to do the same from the other side, again 45-degree angle, tucking the fibre in. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to keep this bulk of fibre here. If I was to stab sideways outwards, that would flatten everything down. Instead I'm tucking under, which is just balling up the fibre here and creating that nice little wodge of wool that we can shape. With the remainder of the fibre, what I'm going to do is just come at it from both sides just tucking it inwards there, similarly to how we were doing the foot, catching the edges and tucking them in, and just do the same at the top. And you can see now we've got 2 lumps of fibre. Now this one I want to just smooth into the body a bit, so 45-degree angle again, just along the top here, just stabbing it back down and towards the body. Sorry, fingers again. Whilst I've got my finger protectors on, I do tend to try and use uncovered fingers, and that can end up meaning you stab yourself, so just try and remember to use your finger protected finger. That's brought this in a little bit more, so I'm just going to go now just over the whole thing, just bring it down a little bit. Again, just try and smooth this top section just into the body, and then it's time to go over this foot. So again, I'm stabbing to either side again, but I'm catching the fibre from just a little bit higher. So if you look from this angle, just catching and tucking it under. And it's best to keep alternating between both sides, just so that all the fibre doesn't get pushed just in one direction. Once that starts to tighten up a little bit, what I'm going to do is just stab from above, and I'm using my thumb just underneath where the paw is, and I'm just stabbing at an angle so that I can catch all the fibre along here and stab it towards the base. And I'm just working around the whole paw now, doing that. And that's given us just a little squishy paw there. If you wanted to, you can just stab along and create some little lines for the little toes. To do that, just aim your needle towards the main body, put your thumb back underneath the paw, and just little jabs really close together. Not going too deep though, just little jabs. And I'm just working in a line all the way down to my thumb. And I'm going to do that in the middle of this last remaining section. This is going to leave us with 3 toes. If you wanted more toes, you just have to do more lines. There we go. Now because that's pushed the feet back a little bit, the leg seems quite big, so I'm just going to go over that again. And because I want to keep this rounded effect, what I'm going to do is change my felting needle angle as I work over it. And I'm imagining that through the centre of the leg, just against the body, there's a line. The point of my needle should always be aiming for that line. So if I show you from above, there we go. What I'm doing is my needle is pointing towards the body there. As I move, the angle is changing as I work my way round the leg until I get back to the other side. And by changing that angle, I'm keeping the nice curved shape. So it's easier for me to do it from this angle just to do it quickly. But I'm changing my angle as I work still, just to bring in the leg evenly and keep it rounded. There we go, so that's our first leg. I'm now going to go off and do the other leg. There we go, I've just done the second leg. Now I did do this a little distance from the first leg because I wanted to get the paws to come together but keep a gap between the legs. But I have found that the gap is quite big, so if you wanted to bring your legs together a little bit, what you can do is just pinch between finger and thumb just to bring them together, and then start stabbing just in between the two. Now I want to keep some fullness up here, but I do want to bring those feet together, so I'm just working in a line just between the 2 paws and stabbing quite deeply here. And what this does is it just pushes everything in there, which brings these bits together. Now because this is sticking up quite a bit there, I'm just going to stab down just a little bit, not as deeply here, just in that V between the legs. There we go. So I'm a bit happy with those now. And this also brings them in so that we've got this outside section here, which can be our back legs. Now to define the back legs, all I'm going to do is just do a little bit of a curve, go just a few little jabs with the needle, not stabbing too deeply. I'm using a little bit of an angle, so I'd say probably a 45-degree angle again, pointing towards the paws and just stabbing around to the side. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Because I'm right-handed, I find it easier to go from front to back, so I've just turned it round so it's upside down, and that just makes it easier for me just to stab as I want to. So never be afraid to just rotate your work. Go. So that's given us our little knees there for the back legs. We will need some feet for those, so I'm going to grab a bit more of my roving, pull off again a section, a bit more than that I think, and again split it into two. Go try and get it as even as you can. I'm terrible at doing this, but I will try my best to get them evenish. There we go. I'm just going to mess this up a little bit, roll it into a bit of a ball. Oops. Do the same with the other one. And I'm going to place it where I want my foot to be. Try and get it so that I'm kind of rolling it in on itself. There we go. Just hold it lightly with my thumb, and I'm going to stab just around the outside edge. And I'm pulling it in really gently with the end of the needle just to create just a bit of a ball shape there. And once I've done that, so I've kind of felted just in an arc along the base here, I'm just going to stab it right to the edge. And I'm going to catch the edge a little bit higher, and I'm going to stab that down into the base as well. Once it's all connected, I'm just going to do exactly the same, working around in that arch, just catching the fibre a little bit higher up this time. There we go. And along the base. Then I'm just going to come from the side, so this leg would be coming along this way, so I'm going to be stabbing straight down just to flatten this edge so it just meets up here with the side of the body a little bit better. And again, we can do some little toes if we want to. I'm going to try for 2 lines. If you feel like yours isn't looking quite right, just go for the 1 line, or you can skip this step altogether if you like. Just going to keep going over those until they're really defined. And then if you wanted to, you can do just a little line just to represent the back leg. For me, I think this is just leaving a little bit too much of a gap, so I'm going to grab a little bit more of my carded fibre, just a little bit this time, and I'm going to place it just over where that line is, so just between the body and that toe. And I'm just going to stab just round, little jabs quite close together, working backwards and forwards just to fill in that gap a little bit. And at the moment I've got my needle pointing towards the foot, just kind of tucking the fibre down and under. Just going to redefine that toe a little bit, just because it's lost a little bit of shape. I'll just go over that line once more. And just bring it down just a little bit here, just to make the paw stand out more. And because as I've gone over this, it's changed the shape here, I'm just going to go over that curve once more, just to really define it. So that's giving us our little back leg there and our knee. And I'm just going to do the other leg. Okay, so I've added my second back leg, and I've gone over my front legs a little bit more, just stabbing from either side, just towards the front, just over the top, just to make them just that little bit narrower. And that's also brought out the chest here. And we can, if we want to, just add a little bit more fibre here, because found with the cat, they tend to have a larger chest. So we're going to grab just a bit more of our carded fibre. We're going to lay it just over the top and stab just between the legs, just in that V there, just catching those loose ends. And we really want to tuck them into that line on either side, just where the leg hits the body, just because we don't want to make the legs any bigger. So we're going to be tucking all that loose fibre just inside, and we can just catch some of the fibre just with the end of the needle, really lightly. We don't want to put any sideways pressure onto the needle. And we're just going to tuck it down, just kind of building up that section there. There we go. And just attach any loose ends just into the body. And that should leave us with a really fluffy, large section of fibre. Bits in the wall. Just have a look at your reference pictures, and the way that I've got mine is that there's a bit of a line here, so I'm just going to stab at a 90-degree angle to the line I want to create. Oops. Just going to stab that in there, and then it curves round just between the legs, so I'm just stabbing straight down, just bringing in these loose ends again, and I'm pointing my needle towards the base and just stabbing away from myself. That's just tucking any loose fibres down and in. So have a look from different angles, and it's kind of loose around here, so I'm just going to do some little jabs over the surface there. And I'm not stabbing too deeply at this point, I'm just attaching it quite loosely. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for now, because what I want to do is add the head on, and then once the head's on I can reshape this as needed. So look at your overall shape. So I've got my back, the bum area here, the chest here. So I'm going to want my head to come up from here. So I'm going to grab myself a section of roving again, section of carded fibre again, and I'm just going to attach just the loose fluffy end. Again, little jabs. I really just want to attach it on the surface just so that it's secure. And then what I'm going to do is I want my head to come up here. So I'm just going to concertina down the fibre a little bit, hold it in place loosely with my finger and just start stabbing it just into place. And what you can do is just imagine how wide you want the neck to be and just stab around in a circle in that diameter. I want a reasonably long neck just to make the cat look a little bit more elegant. If you wanted a very elegant cat, what I'd suggest is making the body quite long and the neck quite long. But I've got quite a stocky body, so I'm just going to have to make up for it with the neck. And I'm just catching a little bit more fibre each time I go round. Just keep rotating, stabbing downwards. So I'm using kind of a 45-degree angle, stabbing downwards towards the centre of the neck area and just catching and stabbing in. And we're just going to keep doing this until all of the fibre has been built up into the neck. And you want it to be reasonably firm for this, just because we are going to be adding different sections to it later. As you build up the neck, you'll be able to stab a little bit higher up, but always remember to stab inwards towards the centre. And just mind your fingers that aren't wearing finger protectors as well. I have a tendency to just wrap my fingers round and I've almost stabbed myself a couple of times today. Now if you wanted a wider neck, you would just do your circle wider. If you wanted a narrower neck, do a smaller circle. But I think this is going to be okay. You can always add more fibre around the outside once you're done if you wanted to go wider, or just stab more around the outside and make it denser if you wanted it narrower later. So you've got plenty of options to reshape this once you're done. And you can see if you look from the side that this is building up gradually and getting much longer. And what I'm going to do is keep going, and this is going to be the neck and the top of the head. Now I'm getting towards the end of the fibre, so it is quite fluffy at the top here. What I'm going to do is just lightly with my finger hold it down and just stab right into the top of the neck there. Now I'm not over stabbing this, because what I would like to do, because I hate having to add ears to things, is I'd like to make the ears out of this fibre as well. So looking from the side here, it's a very long neck. I think we're going to have enough fibre to be able to make the ears, which is great. So to do that, what I'm going to do is just lightly pinch, just to flatten the fibre a little bit. And then whilst I'm pinching, just in the centre of the head, I'm just going to do a few stabs, and I'm just doing them quite wide apart here. What I want to do is just flatten the top of the head whilst leaving a section of fibre there. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Again, pinching and just stabbing in between the two ears. Then what you can do is just lay it down onto your cushion and just stab a little triangle in the centre of both of the ears. What this does is just helps to flatten them a little bit, and because I'm doing the triangle inside, not right up to the edges, that should, just carefully pull it off the cushion there, leave a little bit of extra fibre just to make the ear look a bit more 3D. So do that with the other ear as well. Try and get them to match if you can. Now I want my ears to be a little bit pointier, so what I'm going to do is just pinch between my finger and thumb. Make sure that you're wearing your finger protectors for this. And I'm pinching quite tightly here, but I still want to have enough give so that I can put my needle between my back finger and the ear. And I'm just going to work backwards and forwards, little jabs, just sliding the needle along that back finger. And what happens is that the notches in the side of the needle should catch the wall of the ear there and just smooth it out. And we'll turn around and do exactly the same for the other side of the ear. It takes a little bit of practice to be able to do this, but once you get it, it gives you a very nice finish. And I'm just going to work right up to the point of the ear there. And on the other side again. I'm just going to catch any of these loose fibres. You can always trim them with scissors later. If you notice the difference between the two, it has lost its little indent from doing the triangle before, but we can redo that once we've got them both to the same stage. So just go over your triangles again. Again, don't go right to the edge, just do a little hollow inside each ear. And always do this from the front of your animal, otherwise you'll end up with your ears backwards. There we go, just carefully peel it off your cushion. There's our little ears. What I'm going to do now is just stab straight down, just start firming up the head a little bit now that we've taken the excess off for the ears. And because the neck's quite long, I'm not worrying too much about stabbing straight down and flattening it a little bit. I quite like that because it's pushing the fibres out a bit, which is giving our cat some nice cheeks. Again, we can always add some more fibre if we need it later. Don't forget to work your way around the whole of the neck and head. We want to make sure it's all evenly felted. Now, because of the way I felted the neck, rather than stabbing inwards and imagining that there's a line through the centre of it so that we get that nice cylindrical shape, I am still stabbing down and inwards. That's just so that we've got something solid to stab against and you can firm up the neck better that way. Remember to aim for any bits that seem to be sticking out more than others. And you should also keep checking your reference images as well at this point so that you're getting a nice shape. So I think, looking at my reference images and the neck and head, I might add just a little bit of fibre just to fill out right at the back at the top here. So I'm just going to grab a bit more of my carded fibre, just a little section, just kind of squish it together a bit, place it where I want it and just stab around the outside edge of where I want that added section to be. So I'm stabbing in a bit of a curve and I'm stabbing forwards towards the face area through the back of the head. Just a couple of extra stabs to make sure the fiber's where I want it, and then I can just do little jabs into the neck just to smooth out that last tail bit of fiber, and that gives us that nice bump there. So I'm just going to stab that just straight forward. Again, little jabs, just bringing it in gradually just to fill out the top of the head. Once you're happy with everything and where it's all placed, just go over the whole thing really lightly, little jabs quite close together just to smooth it out and just tuck in any loose fibres. There we go. Gives us a much better shape there, I think. Just tuck in those last loose bits between the ears. And then it's going to be time to add the nose and mouth. Now, I do have a tendency to add a bit too much fibre when I'm making the nose and end up making all my cats look like dogs to start off with. So I'm just going to be using a little bit of fibre this time. I think even less than that, just to start off with. I can always add more later. I'm going to lay it just where I want the nose to be. A couple of stabs at the top to anchor it. Then I'm just going to work my way around to the outside edge. Again, I want to make it quite small, and I'm just going to do an oval shape just right at the front where I want the nose and mouth to be. I'm just going to keep going around that outside edge till it starts to just firm up a little bit. Once it's more firmly attached, I'm just going to turn it sideways a little bit and then stab over the top, just looking to see how far in I need to take it from this angle. Then turning around again, just kind of smooth things out. Bring that chin up again. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of a Y shape, an upside down Y shape. What we want to do is just to outline where the jowls will be and under the nose, and that should give us our chin. So 2 lines in and 1 line up. Go, and then I'm just going to go around the outside edge again, just to bring everything in again. Go. And we're just going to need a little nose, so I'm just going to grab some of my darker fibre. Just need a tiny bit. Now, we don't want to rub this into too much of a ball because we want to be able to felt it into a triangle. I'm going to go even smaller, I think. There we go, tiniest of bits of fibre. What I'm going to do is just give a couple of stabs just at that top of that line, which is the base of the nose. Just make sure it's attached. And then I'm going to do 2 more stabs. One's to one side and the other is to the other side. So we're effectively just stabbing in a triangle. What you want to do is just go from one hole to the other, just catching those loose fibres and stabbing them into place. And if you've got any really loose fibres, quite long ones, just catch them with the end of your needle. Just go in a little circle, just catching those fibres and stab them down. That just neatens things up. And that should give us our little nose. It's pushed out the top there of the nose, so I'm just going to just gently felt over the top. Really tiny little stabs at this point. I don't want to change the shape, I just want to bring in that extra fibre. Same with the sides of the of the mouth there. Take it really slow because you don't want to over stab at this point. And the same with the chin. I'm going to stab upwards. Then I'm just going to do a couple of stabs where I want the eyes to go, just so I know where to sew through in a minute. There we go. So we've got our little face there, very long neck, and our chest. I'm just going to go over the chest a little bit just to smooth that into where the neck was. And I do think because of the size from these paws are quite big, so I'm just going to go over those as well. Just gently over the surface, around the outside edge. Go, and then over the lines again. And can stab from above, just bring that down a little bit. Just bringing the paws down and making them smaller. It's the same technique that we used earlier. We're just going over things. So see, that's much smaller now. I'm going to go over the other paws as well and bring those in, just as we did before. And then I think we can add our tail. Okay, so I've been over the whole thing and just brought sections in slowly, just with little jabs close together, just to smooth them out. I've been over the feet and just made those a little bit smaller, the front and back. And just gone over the neck again, just to make sure that that's nice and solid. So be sure to look at your reference pictures, look at your cat from different angles, and just keep going until you're happy. Once you are, it's time to add our tail. So I've got another section here of carded fibre. I'm just going to tear off a section, get rid of the rest. Taking my finger protectors off for this bit, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it between my hands. And I'm going to keep going until it starts forming into a tail shape. So it's just like working with clay, you know, when you used to make plasticine sausages and whatever else it was as children. Same sort of idea, just keep rubbing it between your hands. If you wanted to, you could use a bit of water with this, a tiny bit of washing up liquid as well. Keep rubbing it until you've got the shape you want, and then just rinse it to clean out the water. I think we can get away with it though without having to do that. And the friction and the moisture of your hands, although mine aren't all that moist at the minute, you can tell by the sound, should start the felting process. Here we go. And I am, when I'm rolling it, just avoiding felting one end, because that end's going to be the one that I use to attach it to the body. The pointy end is going to be the pointy end of the tail, so fluffy end, just work out where the centre back of your cat is. Attach the fluffy end, finger protectors for this again, and we're just going to lightly start stabbing just that fluffy section. Just stabbing straight down, little jabs again, not too deep. We want to smooth it out, we don't want to change the shape. And then once it's all starting to felt in, I'm just going round in a bit of a circle, just along the outside edge of the tail there. Go. So there's our tail, it's attached. If you wanted to wrap it round, what you can do, just hold it, just add a little bit of give, and just little jabs. And the best way to do this is to be stabbing downwards along that line. So you're just catching just the barest few fibres, and then turn it and do it from underneath as well. Exactly the same, just catching and tucking down towards the middle of the tail, just against the body. There's our tail. So what we need to do now is just to add our eyes. So I can get rid of my felting cushion for this. I've got rid of my felting cushion and my finger protectors. I'm not going to be needing those for this. We're going to be attaching our eyes using our needle and thread. So, a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to come up through the chin, come out through the back of the head, just even out my thread a little bit. I'm going to pull the thread until it's just inside the head and you can't see the tail. Once that's done, just do a couple of stitches just into the back of the head just to secure your thread. Make them quite small and keep them as close together as you can. There we go. Once they're done, your thread's nice and secure. You can sew through to where you did your indent before for one of the eyes. Grab one of your beads, pop it onto your needle and thread, and we're going to sew back through to where we did our stitches earlier and pull our thread. I find it quite helps if you pull it in so it's indented into the cat's head. There we go. Keep it in place with your thumb and then do a couple more stitches just in the back there. Again, try and keep them as close together as you can. It makes them more secure and also makes it easier later when you're trying to hide them with some fibre. Make sure it's nice and secure before you sew through, and do the same again on the other side with your other bead. Again, pull it nice and tight make sure it's where you want it, pop your thumb on it to hold it in place, couple more stitches. Once it's nice and secure, we're just going to sew back through to the chin, grab the scissors, and whilst you're pulling quite tightly on your thread, just push your scissors against the chin of your cat and snip, and there you go, you can't see any of those threads. All that's left to do is to hide our stitches. We'll need our felting supplies again. Oops. Take your small piece of carded fibre, place it over the top of your stitches, and we're just going to stab round with our needle at 45-degree angle, pointing inwards towards the stitches, and we're going to work our way round just in a circle, catching those loose bits of fibre and stabbing down and in. Once we've been round and all those loose edges are kind of tucked away, we can just stab straight down over the top, little jabs close together. Just keep going until it's all smoothed out. There we go. So we've hidden our stitches, our eyes are in place, and there is our little cat.
Thank you for watching and for making it right to the end. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, be sure to click on that like button, and if you haven't already, click on that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Any comments, pop them into the comments section. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.